welcome to the Center for Victory podcast of Your Best Day Yet. My name is Zach DelTurco. I'm an executive consultant here at the Center for Victory. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. Today, we have good friends with us, Adventures in Training with a Purpose, ATP. We have Caleb and Sarah. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our podcast. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys do.
Yeah, so my name's Caleb. I act as the executive director of ATP. Prior to ATP, I went to school at the University of Nebraska. I graduated and then worked in the medical supply field. And I moved home in 2017 to help my dad with Adventures in Training with a Purpose, and then transitioned to the role of executive director.
Yeah, I'm Sarah, and I have a degree in marketing. So I spent the early years after graduating working for PPG, U.S. Steel, and then L.B. Foster. I was actually selling train tracks the last 6 years of my life. So yes, people still do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was volunteering with ATP because I really have a heart for serving veterans, and that's how I found them, because they're local here in Pittsburgh, and was just on my heart to stop selling the train tracks and start working with ATP. So as of March of this year, I've been doing that full time.
It's incredible. And what I really want to focus with our time together is talking about this idea of millennial leadership. And I truly believe that age is just a number. You don't have to be at a certain age to be a CEO, executive director, or a key position within a role. And I think that's what really makes your company unique, because you guys are in that transition phase where your dad was leading the organization, and now he's really passing the baton to you and to Sarah. So talk to us a little bit about what do you guys do at ATP, and we're going to start talking about transitional and millennial leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want maybe a background of how we got here? Then, so my father, John, he has his master's degree in exercise science, and he is so good at working with the clients, and he teaches kinesiology and physiology at Youngstown State, so he's very, very knowledgeable at as far as writing exercise prescriptions for clients and how to improve their functional movement and functional well-being. And so where he kind of lacked, I guess, if you want to say that, is just the business side of things. And so when would you say that was that we met with my dad?
Well, I guess to back up just a little bit, in 2015, John was doing the training out of his own pocket, and still has not taken a paycheck to this day, but just training those people where their insurance has run out, the physical training and therapy that they need is no longer being supported financially, and their pockets have been emptied, trying to get that support as well. So he was so good at providing that one-on-one training. He's so passionate about helping people to restore that functional movement and quality of life. But checking his emails is not his gift.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we started to get to the point where, hey, this is really working. We're really impacting lives here, and we're growing. We need people doing the business part of things full time. So that's where Caleb moved home at the perfect time and really grew the business. And then I found ATP at the right time too, and we've just really we've tripled in the last year.
Wow.
So that's been really exciting, and we've learned a lot through it, and it was all part of putting people and letting people lead where they're gifted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about growing pains, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, so when I moved home, we had our annual Lamont fundraiser coming up, and where we were then, we weren't going to be able to do our next set of payroll. We didn't have enough money in the bank to do payroll. And luckily we had a family friend that bought a table at our fundraiser, and that got us through that payroll cycle. And just since there, like Sarah said, it really has been putting people in the place where they're excited, where they have their most experience, and where they can do their, fulfill their role successfully.
And talk a little bit about, maybe even take a step back, why was ATP formed? I think it came out of a place of pain that your dad actually saw with your brother, correct?
Yeah, so right. My father has always had a heart for people with chronic disease, chronic illnesses. My brother has muscular dystrophy, and so that's always been on his heart. And in 2015, he was working for an orthopedic surgeon, and he wanted to develop programs for people that had these chronic disease, chronic illnesses. And at that time, the orthopedic surgeon had hired a new CFO, and that man's job is to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you'll find when you're working with clients with chronic diseases is it's not as profitable as people that just need general acute physical therapy. If somebody has a broken ankle and they are going to PT, one physical therapist can help 5 patients at a time,
mm-hmm.
and they can build the ICD-10 codes, and they can make money on that. If there's whereas people with chronic diseases, they really require a lot more of that one-on-one attention that I can't. Especially our staff is so good, we can't just say, hey, okay, here's your exercise and then walk away.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our clients have gait trouble with walking, their stability, a lot of them are fall risks, and they need that one-on-one attention. And so my dad wanted to do these programs, and they kind of had a little going back and forth where this isn't profitable, you can't do it. And so in 2015, my dad said, okay, I will do it myself. And so we met. We were blessed to meet some people smarter than us that were able to help us start a 501c3, start a nonprofit, and we started ATP to help those that are most in need as far as their chronic disease and illnesses, that they don't have another avenue. Their insurance funding is cut. They may have plateaued as far as the insurance is concerned, and they needed help. And so that's how we started. We had no marketing budget. It was just all word of mouth, and that's really what's got us to where we're at today.
So you started back in 2015?
Yep.
And now we're at 2019.
Yep.
Where you guys have tripled.
And it's really within the past year and a half, 2 years that we've tripled. I mean, it was. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we started with the chronic pain and disease program in 2015. And since then, we've launched at-risk youth programs, veterans programs, programs that serve those suffering substance and homelessness, and athlete programs. And really the root of all of the programs is movement, and so healthy living and movement, and incorporating that functional training and stability and balance throughout all of those populations.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that transition. So your dad had the baton, and he realized, okay, in order for us to grow this to the next level, we have to hand it off to, so to speak, the next generation or the millennials to help take it to the next level.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that, because companies we work with, they're in that transition period where they're starting to think, or they're actually starting to act upon that. So talk a little bit about it from your perspective. What did that transition look like? And I know you guys are kind of still in that transition phase, but tell me a little bit about that.
Well, so when I came to ATP, I was the director of development, and I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
It was all relationship building and building programs and just out working with people. And so my dad actually had both of us over to dinner, and it was more of like a voluntold than an asking, because I didn't want to be the executive director.
Yeah.
There was a lot of I liked where I was at. I didn't want that title.
Yeah.
But talking to my dad, he said, I recognize that if we want to, and we had a lot of goals, and if we want to reach those goals, we need to put people in places where they shine, and my dad, he doesn't want to deal with payroll and the books, and he doesn't want to deal with, emailing back and forth and growing he is passionate about working with people, and that's what he's good at. He knows the kinesiology, he knows the physiology, and that's what he wants to do. And so he really said, I want to take a step back, and especially I think our staff is so great. But Sarah and I complement each other pretty well because there's a lot of differences with us. And he said, I really think that I want you, I would like you to take over as the executive director. And so that's what we did. We met with the board and we proposed it to the board and they voted on it. And so then that's how we got here.
I would say as far as the actual transition process, we changed the titles, but then it comes with implementing. Okay, my title, my job, my duties require this of me. Now I need to bring this into an organization that has never had this before. And I need to let people know that, okay, now I'm the one answering, and now I'm the one that needs to be contacted in these situations. So really just kind of informing, but also gaining that respect through respecting our team as well. Your job is important. We rely on your service. ATP can't function without the service that we provide. So here are some processes that I would like to implement that I feel will help us be here in the long haul and essentially support you in your role better. So it was a very big learning. We're still learning.
And, I know you talk about growing pains. I think when we started, we were just like a ragtag group of kids that wanted to help people. You know what I mean?
Had passion.
We just had passion, but we didn't have structure. And I think, with the growth, that's one thing that's helped us is putting those people in the place where they're excited and best suited for it, and then having those processes that we can follow to be successful.
And what kind of challenges did you guys face early on from that transition?
You want to start?
I would say the big one. I mean, there were many challenges, that can be quickly put out, but the biggest one was fear of failure. I think we all have it somewhere, and wearing new hats that I've never worn before, and many hats that I'm certainly not gifted in. So it's acting in those hats that you have to wear, but not being afraid to fail, because we're all working towards the same goal here. Maybe that event wasn't the best idea, or maybe that this meeting wasn't the one that we needed at this time. So things like that, but just knowing and having the grace to know, like, hey, we're all in this together. We're all learning at the same time. As long as your heart's in the right place, just don't be afraid of that failure.
Yeah, and that's something my dad talks about a lot. Is probably once a week he'll say, listen, I know you're trying. I know we're all trying as hard as we can. I think from the bottom to the top of our staff, everybody's committed. Everybody's passionate, but they're trying as hard as they can, and just being resilient. When things aren't working out, don't bounce back, bounce forward. And just continuing to keep the ball rolling.
I think I say it probably once every 3 days, maybe. Fail forward.
Yeah.
That's.
But I think it's so true, especially for our generation and our age group. Is we look at social media and we see everybody's highlight reels, and then we see our day to day. And I think the greatest thing that people above us in leadership can give us is a platform to fail. And I forget who said, I think it was either Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. He says, I've learned more from my failures than I did my successes. And I would say that's true in my leadership as well. I've learned so much more when I had the opportunity and the platform to fail and being a part of that safe environment. But I think a lot of us in our generation is like, we feel like we have to have everything perfect before we do something. Whereas, you know what? Let's take calculated risk. But if we fail, that's probably the greatest lessons we're going to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's good to learn this. When I was in Nebraska, I had taken over a medical supply company. I was the only one in it, and the man that owned it, his name was Ed Conklin. He was my mentor, and previously I'd worked for the university, and the university was very micromanaging, and Ed was very, almost to a fault, like, I love you, kid. You got to figure this out, and it frustrated me at the time because I you want to call and ask for help, I need help, bail me out. And one of the greatest lessons that I learned from Ed was, you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and find a solution and go and get it.
That's the way I look at it. It's like you throw yourself in, or the leadership throws you into the deep end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say it's time for you to swim,
Right.
or it's time for you to learn how to swim.
Right.
And I think in my last place where I was at, I got thrown into the deep end, and you start to develop muscles that you never knew you had before. You start to have that ownership mentality that you never thought you could have, and that's my biggest lesson in my last season was like, man, it was the most painful season I've ever been through, but it's the most growth I've ever had in my whole entire life. Yeah. So with you guys, you have those growing pains. What are some things that you're doing to overcome those challenges?
So I would say one thing that I was fortunate enough to learn early in my career, because my previous company really believed this too, and I was the essentially beneficiary of it, is leading by performance. Let your performance lead. The results, the outcomes, the heart and the effort are what getting you those promotions and the recognition that you need. And we have, I feel like, taken that and tried to incorporate this into our staff, and letting those who are leading in the performance and the knowledge and the service that they're providing, and saying, hey, I want you to take this to the next level. So we've created opportunities to get them a little bit outside that comfort zone and let them know, like, hey, you can do it. If you need anything, we're here, but I believe that you can do it now. I want you to show yourself that you can do it. We have an incredibly young staff and incredibly gifted in things that I don't even know the words they're saying sometimes. So I am learning each time I talk to them. But it's just nice to see how we can provide things that teach them and kind of give them that personal growth in their career, and they can show us the heart of ATP, the service, the passion that goes through working with the clients one-on-one. So I guess it's creating opportunities to let those grow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think, one thing that's really helped us overcome our challenges is to really step back and say, okay, and we had all of our staff do this, and all of our staff has done PI, and really focusing on what our strengths are. When we started, Sarah and I were doing the books, we were doing the marketing, we were going to the meetings, we were doing all the SEO, we were doing, answering all the emails, all the calls, and really it's putting the people in place that their strengths are going to shine. And so, for example, we have a client that he works with us. He had a spinal cord injury, and he's a CPA. And here we're doing the books, and we both hate it. I mean, we're pulling our hair out. we're trying, we're trying to get all the books done, send them into for the taxes and everything. We're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like we couldn't stand it. And here we have a client, John, that this is what he does, this is what he knows, and he loves it. And hey, if you guys need help, like, I want to help you. And so we've brought him on, and we put him in. So now he's doing our books for us. We have another person that we met, Patsy, and she's a nurse, and so her skills, she's very gifted. She can go through our intake forms, our risk stratifications, and go through the medical history of each client and say, okay, here's the medications that you're on. This is the exercise prescription that our training specialists are recommend for you, and just to make sure that all those things are in line, because now that takes it off of Matt Costa, who's he's the head of our exercise science. We're working with the clients, and so now he doesn't have to, every time he works with somebody, go back and fill out their chart and say, and then that takes off him, so he can focus on what he's good at. You introduced us to Connor. We don't know anything about SEO, and here we are. We're trying to do SEO, and Connor's came on board, and so now he can help us with our internet marketing. So
that's incredible. So right person, right role,
and just focusing on their strengths. And I think that really keeps everyone filled up, keeps everyone energetic, and looking forward to coming to work. Yeah.
And you have something?
No, I mean, just one thing that we have learned through all of this is, and we learned it in one of our very early meetings, Mr. Brian Kubarni told us this, is to be teachable. We have sometimes no idea what we're doing, but we know it needs done. So we call, we ask questions, we have our board that we trust, and we seek guidance from family, Center for Victory, and it's just, don't be afraid to say you don't know the answer and that you've never done this before, but you're willing to give it everything. Just teach me and show me how. So being teachable was how we got through a lot and still get through a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and I think that's our staff in general. I mean, just like to be successful at ATP, number one, you have to be competent. You have to know, for your role, you have to know what you need to know to do that. But the other two things, like Sarah said, the biggest one is being teachable. And for me as executive director, like I'm trying to surround myself with people that are in that role of other organizations. I'm listening to podcasts, reading, learning as much as I can for my role. And I think is our whole staff, the staff that, when we have interns, the ones that are teachable and really are excited to learn and just absorb as much as they can, they're going to do well. And number two is just being high energy. When all of our staffs, maybe minus one, was an intern first.
Wow.
And we've had interns that, Corinne, for example, we've had staff when she'd leave for the day, and we have clients that'll come up and say, man, I really, she's great. I come for her, and she's very high energy, and she just loves to learn. So I think those two things, like Sarah said, are just...
Yeah. So in your transition, and we're going to skip a couple of these questions, how did your team come on board with you? And I know every transition can be messy, but how did you get your team to say, what, John was a leader now you guys are a leader? How did you kind of cast a vision or to get them saying, what, we're going to take ATP to the next level? How did they respond to that?
I think, and we're still learning it because it's still very new, but what we learned we cannot do is just say, hey, this is how it's going to be, and we've decided to do this, this, and this. Now give me this.
Yep.
You can't do that. You have to gain the respect of the employees and why you're doing these certain processes. I'd like you to, track your hours and do this and, not work over 40 hours because here's why. So gaining that respect by, learning from them and also teaching them the importance of your role. So I would say, just communicating the purpose of certain processes and actions while implementing them, and sticking to the processes. Not everyone, Caleb's very not process oriented, I'm very process oriented, but we realize they have importance, and you need to stick with them once they're rolled out, and there will be growing pains in that too, because feelings can be hurt, someone jumped over me to do this, things like that, but just sticking to them and communicating the importance is what we learned, among many other things that I'm sure Caleb can tell you about too. And I'm sure our staff would love to tell us what they learned through all of this.
Comment in the section below.
Yeah, for real. And I think one thing that really helps us, well, as far as the transition, I think it's been good because it's putting, I think right now with our staff is amazing, and we have just everybody I think is in their right role. We have some staff that are so good with kids, and Jess is great with kids. She runs our kids program. Matt is so good with the chronic disease clients. He runs that, and just putting those people in that role. And my dad, I think everybody kind of understood. My dad, again, is very good with the clients. He doesn't enjoy the business side of of ATP, and so he doesn't want to do that. And so I think it was a smooth transition because I think we cast our vision, and one thing that helped, we try and have staff meetings, and bring everybody in, and we have what we want to cover, and then if there's issues, things that we need to work on, and we can go through that with everyone and really give everyone a voice and to try and make everyone feel like they're heard.
That's good. That's good. And I'll ask you one question. I'll ask you the last question.
Okay.
What's one piece of advice, Sarah, you would give an organization or leader who's currently going through transition or thinking about going through transition? One piece of advice.
Oh gosh, can I go? No. I So going through transition, one piece of advice. I guess I could tell one person as a person what to do, and then maybe they could help roll this out with their staff, which would be to identify your gifts and then work on growing them and act in them too. But then, and encourage your team to do that as well, because like we've said a couple times now, that helps you to realize, okay, my gift is encouraging people. The books probably aren't my forte, so maybe we should look into getting someone to handle the books or take that off your plate so you can do this. And the importance of growing the gifts is because then you get to really just kind of act in where you're best at. And what I've learned, especially throughout the last year, is when you start to use and work in your gifts and your purpose, you become this source of life for those around you and yourself, really. So the urgency in doing that and not being afraid to fail, failing forward, is that essentially your life and the lives of others really depend on it.
That's good.
So
that's really
don't be afraid to fail and grow your gifts.
Yeah. And last question for you.
All right.
Looking back from the last year,
Okay.
what has been the biggest growth opportunity in your leadership?
Oh, I think for me, and you know this, it's. I'm trying to think how to say this. The biggest growth opportunity is just understanding where the areas that I'm not good, and you have to develop some of those areas. Like for me, I hate when we have to have some sort of like confrontational, like if when things go wrong, I just want everything to go smoothly.
Yeah.
So for me, when I have to have those conversations that are negative, like I get anxiety over it. You know what I mean? Like I have to like write everything down, and so I really just learning that okay, how to approach these situations, and really just moving forward, and I think, like Sarah said, just being teachable, and that's helped me more than anything. Is I really am trying, like I'm trying very hard when I don't know how to do something, to call somebody on our board or somebody that may know how to do this that can help me learn this, so that the next time around, I'll know what to do. And from the last year, it's just growing. It's happening less. When I first took over, I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? And, but I'm a goer, and I want to learn. Yeah. And I think that's, as we develop these new programs, these new locations, these new meetings, we're having fundraisers, you just continually learn from the past, and it's helped me a lot.
That's good. Well, thank you guys so much for teaching us about transitional leadership and millennial leadership. And like I said in the beginning, I think age is just a number.
Absolutely.
And the greatest thing you can do for the leaders coming up within your organization is to give them that platform to fill. And I think that was really the common thread of what I heard both of you guys say. So thank you so much.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I just to piggyback off that, I agree. Age is just a number. Matt, he's running our training programs. Mm-hmm. He's 23. We've had interns older than him and staff that are older than him. But I mean, it's one of those things, and the same thing with our other staff is we give them these challenges, and if they can handle it, you give them more responsibility, and they handle that, and you can continually, and they're just growing, and it's so exciting. So I agree with you. Age is a number, and if you can handle it,
do you want to read our quote that we
Yes. So when I made that phone call last week, I was saying the idea came up: when you love what you do, right? Yeah. You'll never work a day in your life. And I said that, and you guys had a really interesting...
I think it was often a night of maybe 2 hours of sleep. So what we responded with was, do what you love, and you'll work super hard all the time with no separation or boundaries, and also take everything extremely personal. So that was probably my biggest growth, because as a recovering perfectionist, I get that sense of value and success off of crossing things off a list. But when you're doing what you love, that list grows by the minute.
Yeah.
So just give yourself some grace and give it your best. That's
Yes.
all I, yeah.
Well, thank you guys so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thank you guys so much for staying tuned. If you like what you heard, please give us a thumbs up. Also, leave some things in the section below, the comment section below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on transitional leadership and millennial leadership. And remember this, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. See ya.
See ya.